Here they come. Good morning, everyone joining us. We are just waiting for some more people and we will get started shortly. Oops, sorry guys. Good morning and welcome. Whoops, I'm so technically challenged. How do you backspace? Brian, how do you backspace? Oh, wait. Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar, What the Heck is ATS and Why Do I Need to Be Friends with It? My name is Patty Ferris, and I am here with my cohort, Brian Speranza, and we're going to teach you everything you need to know about ATS. We have a couple of housekeeping issues. First of all, the attendees are muted, so you don't have to worry about that. If you have questions, please, at the bottom of your screen, use the Q&A, and we will most definitely try and answer them to the best of our ability. Also, if you want to use the chat button, the chat is open, so please feel free to chat with either Brian or myself. And then finally, we just wanted to let you know that this session is being recorded. So if there's anyone who couldn't make it or somebody who you think may benefit from this, this will be on all of our social media. So the session is being recorded. A couple of other things, if you like what you see and you're not a part of TAMS or you want to learn more about TAMS, please visit our website, which is tamstravel.org. And join today. There is absolutely no fee to join our organization. And then if you haven't heard the great news about TAMS Marketplace invites travel and travel-related suppliers to join what we're going to be probably known as the Amazon of travel. It allows you to exhibit your products or services. And we're very excited to be announcing that. So those are all the housekeeping issues. So I am going to quickly go through the agenda. The agenda is what is ATS, Applicant Tracking Systems. Brian and I will discuss the advantages and disadvantages for both HR and travel talent managers, and then of course the applicant. We'll give you a brief overview on the top ATS systems. And then I'm going to go through a great product that Brian has introduced me to, which is called JobScan, and how that can help people who are looking for a new job. Then some tips on how to get around ATS. And then finally, we'll have some questions and answers that Brian and I will try to answer. I do have one thing to disclose. Brian and I are not the experts on this. We actually went to the experts to get some information from them, which are some HR people and talent managers, but unfortunately, due to confidentiality, they were not able to join the webinar, but did give us their insights and some information that we can share with you. So I'm going to pass it to my cohort, Brian, who is going to talk about the advantages. Or what is ATS? I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Patty, and thank you everybody else joining us today. I just want to say I'm just like you. I'm a job seeker. I'm looking at I'm looking through LinkedIn. I'm looking through job applications that are online, and I'm applying. And I've applied to dozens and maybe hundreds of job applications. I put those in, but then I had to stop. And I slowed down and I realized that I had to study the ATS and I had to figure out what this was and basically see if I could speak the language so that I could improve my chances. So today I want to introduce you to the ATS system so that you can have a better relationship with it and then you'll improve your chances of getting the job you want and getting the interview you want when you apply online. You guys deserve it. You have tons of skills. And sometimes what's there is just the ATS creates a little bit of a barrier, but if we become friends with it, we'll know how to use it better. So what is the ATS? It's really a software. This is called the Applicant Tracking System. Companies use this software to manage online job submissions. They post resumes, or they post job descriptions, they collect resumes, and they use the ATS to filter their job descriptions and all applications that come in. Now the system's driven by technology and AI functions. So there's a little bit of a robot capability behind the scenes here. And it matches job postings with the most qualified candidates. They use a parsing technology. Anybody ever heard of that? Parsing. So we're gonna, what the system does, it's able to look at your paper, your resume, and take out certain keywords, certain skills and education, everything from your background that you put into your resume. This system can look at, take out the ones that it wants and filter it into one place that makes sure you match the needs. And that's good or bad. We'll talk a little bit more about that, the advantages throughout the presentation. But another thing to know, the ATS, it's used by human resources departments as a basic hiring tool. So HR systems can be vast, right? When you think about any big company, they use their HR systems for not just job applications, but it could be payroll, it could be training, it could be scheduling. So those are the big systems that we call HRMS. But inside of that, the ATS is that little piece that works with job submissions and job applications. So just so you know that. Companies using ATS, it's really a benefit to HR systems. If you polled, I've got studies here from CIO magazine. 94% of hiring teams believe that the ATS improves their hiring process. It's just unanimously helpful for HR people. But we're also going to learn what the choices are for applicants and how to use that system a little better. But again, if you see the quote here about Starbucks, 7 million applications they receive a year, and they don't even have 70,000 jobs. So they're just overloaded. Large companies get so many applications, they need to use a system, they need to use technology, and that's where the ATS comes in. So let's look at some of the advantages, right? Human resource, I said they use this for so many reasons, but at the core of it, it improves efficiency and saves time in their hiring processes because they're able to automate some of these features. They can manage interviews processes. They can do the feedback reviews. When you have a team of interviewers, you're able to see all of their feedback in one simple place for all of the candidates, and they can share that. Now, candidate communication is also something that ATS systems are able to do. So you can think about when you receive the automated email, right? Thank you for applying. Or the dreaded one, thank you for going through our system, but your skills didn't match. These are automated and they come from the ATS system. So when you think about it that way, this is the computer. We just want to understand what they do. You know, when you talk to a friend, hey, what do you do? What do you like? What don't you like? This will help us get to know what the system does, because it's a computer. And those systems also provide data and performance analytics. So on the back end, you can get studies to show how many applicants there are. You can figure out whether their scores match up. And those possibilities are endless, but it's very, very helpful for human resource teams and talent managers, especially when you have thousands or potentially millions of applicants. Now, what about applicants? What are the advantages there? You're probably thinking at this point, maybe none, right? I'm just one person, you think, up against the machines that is an ATS system. It's designed by technology software and executives. How could I, just one person, come to battle with that and kind of outsmart it? Well, if you learn the language of ATS and you understand what they're doing, you become friends with it, you're going to land those job interviews that you deserve. You're able to tailor your resume. This is what the advantage of ATS system, it's very specific. And if you can be specific with your resume, you can match the keywords and the skills with the job description. If you take the time to do that, you're going to be successful. And, you know, one of the things that we don't really talk about, but this is a big reason for the ATS systems, it avoids hiring discrimination. So think about job postings that only come by word of mouth, or job postings that are, you know, just informal hiring. Either it's word of mouth, or you say, hey, would you hire my buddy? You say that to your boss, and your boss says, yeah, of course. Well, if I don't know anybody at that company, I'm not going to get that job, and that's unfair. That's a form of discrimination. But as an applicant, everybody has the same option. It's kind of an open thing, and you put in your data, and the applicant to my left, the applicant to my right, you have that same choice, that same chance to get through the ATS system. So that's a good thing. That's on our side. So just remember that. We're going to go through some more tips, but before we do that, Patty's going to tell you about more.
Yes. I have the task of the disadvantages for the human resources and also the talent managers. You know, through this process, they can miss some really great candidates and some great hires, and that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate for them, and it's also unfortunate for you. You know, also another big thing was whether your resume is readable. In some cases, there are some ATS systems that don't understand columns versus tables. Some people try and make their resumes so fancy, and then the ATS system will not recognize that. So it's an automatic elimination. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not qualified. It just means that the system and the technology cannot read your resume. And that goes back to the graphics. For example, I used to put like a little telephone on my resume, you know, telephone versus cell phone, and the ATS knocked that out because they couldn't read that, and it looked like my resume was not fully, I didn't have enough information. So it automatically kicked me out. And then of course, we have the technology malfunction. It's technology. It could get hacked, it could go down, there can be electrical outlet, there could be anything where that's out of your control or out of the human resource and talent manager's control. So we know that, you know, that is definitely an issue. And then sometimes your resume's in an unusual format. And when I give you an example of how we're going to help you get through or break through ATS, you'll see sometimes with resumes, your format does not actually match what the ATS system is looking for. So that can be a problem. And then I think the last thing that we worry about is human error. So actually, I need to go back, but human error. So this is a manual system. So, and actually I should go back. So it's a manual system. So if you're putting in a word or a keyword that is so important to this job description and you spell it incorrectly, like instead of strategy, you put in strategy and you leave out the R, nobody's resume is going to have that. So it's going to click back to say that this person doesn't have those high keywords. So, and we all know that sometimes when you're going through these things, spell check doesn't recognize specific words. So it's the human error part of it that also can really be a disadvantage. Now, the disadvantages for the applicants, again, goes back to the formatting part of it. You know, you may have a great resume that matches completely, but your formatting may not actually add up. So for example, what Brian and I have learned in speaking with HR people and doing our research through this is that PDF doesn't read as well as a Word document or the DOC document. So I was always told to put my resume and cover letter in PDF. Well, that doesn't always work because it doesn't get formatted. And if any of you have ever applied for a job through a company, sometimes and it says take your resume and you format your resume, it doesn't actually format correctly, and then you have to go through and do all of that all over again. So formatting is really important, and we'll show you some tricks of the trade when we get down to job scan and doing some hints. Okay, remember, this is a system. It's not human. So it doesn't understand. It only understands algorithms. So unfortunately, you know, for us and unfortunately for the applicants, you know, this is all done by a system. And back to Brian's point in the beginning, when he talked about Starbucks and 7 million jobs for 7 million people for 65,000 jobs, again, something has to weed out all of those. And, you know, the 66,000 person may be the person for the job, but it doesn't understand human ingenuity or any kind of instincts. And then sometimes when you tailor your the application, it can lead to a lack of focus. So you worry more about the application than really the job. So we're going to show you some great ways to actually take these disadvantages and maybe work through them and have them become advantages for you as the applicant. Brian?
Thank you, Patty. So some of the systems that we use, but ATS, companies that use ATS are large and small, right? So Fortune 500 companies are, you can probably bet they're definitely using these systems. And startups are also starting to use the systems because they're growing in popularity. And like we said, it makes jobs easier for HR. But the question is, who's using which system? Below, you're going to see some of the biggest names in business and industry all over the world. Now, two of these that are listed here are only the ATS system. It just has that hiring function. That's Greenhouse and ICIMS. Those are just strictly ATS features. Now, Oracle, Workday, and ADP, this is part of that bigger system that does it all. Those are the HR management systems. Knowing them is important. Knowing which system is there, you could look into each one further and kind of find out what questions will they ask. Are there any tips and tricks that you can work for each system? That gets very granular, but if you do find out that your company that you want to apply for is on one of these systems, like Marriott or American Airlines or United Airlines, if you want to apply to those companies, it could help you if you target and you take your time to find out what is Talio like, the Oracle system. And then you can find out what you might need to change or how you need to prepare. So these are just some tips, and these companies you should be able to find either on the Workday site, on the ATS system, or you can find on their site, and I'll show you how. So let's go to the next slide.
And you know what, Brian, I just want to interrupt. So
Yeah.
What we did was we took, there are thousands of companies that utilize these, but what we did was, because we're a travel organization, we wanted to show you some of the companies that you may or may not have applied to in the days. And these are the systems that they use. And then again, it's not a secret, okay? We're not telling you anything that is proprietary, because when you apply for these jobs, it specifically tells you, for example, and we're going to show you in the next slides what system they're actually using. So these are just examples of some companies that, are in our industry, and then also some companies that, big companies that, we thought would be very helpful in knowing what they do.
Yeah, and think about it that way, as if you're talking to your friend, right? It's just the same as if you can understand what they're doing. It's like, hey, what barber do you go to? Or what's your favorite restaurant? That's kind of like, what system do you use? Now, right here is a Marriott application. I work in hotels, or I used to, and I said, okay, well, why don't I look at Marriott? And I go through and I clicked, I found a job description, I clicked through, I clicked apply. And finally, when I got through to that point and I kind of signed in, up at the top, that website changed for me. And it didn't say Marriott anymore. It kind of transferred over, and I saw this oraclecloud.com. So I knew that they were using an ATS system, and I knew that they were using Oracle. That's the Taleo system. It's one of the biggest in the world. Most companies use that, but Oracle's there. Different job companies, when you apply, you're going to find out if it says Workday, if it says Greenhouse. Now you know they're using an ATS. So why is that important? Well, let's go through each of these. They're going to have, if you go back to that one, Patty. So these pre-screening questions, this is what is known as disqualifying questions that ATS uses. It's so important to know this, because when you're applying, if you can't get past this, chances are you're not going to get the job. And the reason you're not getting past it is either because your skills don't match up, and that's something that the ATS tries to weed out. So I went through this, my skills align as a hotel person. So you go through each of these. It says how many years of experience, yada, yada, in hotel sales. Well, if I put 1 year or 0, they could score me very low. And if I say 0 years of experience, the system could automatically just cut me out. I won't get viewed by anybody, and that'll be the end of it. So you might as well stop right there. And this just shows you, I listed the drop down on the first question. What was your scope of responsibility? I'm gonna bet that they have these 5 questions. Were you responsible for your own work, or did you manage a team? For this role, they're going to score each piece a little differently. So you'll get 0 points, 5 points, 15 points up to 25. And that's going to aggregate into a certain score. It's just important to know. So scoring and disqualification. So let's look at the next slide. Let's get into Talio. This is from the HR perspective. This is what the company's going to see once you get through. Again, I circled this area. Hopefully you can see it enough. Those disqualifying questions on this screen are a little different, but do you have a bachelor's degree? Do you have a valid passport? And are you comfortable interfacing with clients? So if I say no to one or two of those, the company can have a setting that says you've disqualified and you're done. So think about that, because when you apply, these come up first in your applications. Just make sure you put in the time to match jobs that work for you, or to get those skills, right? So if you know you want to work somewhere, can you put in a year to get the skills that you want? And that'll help you look better as time goes on. But again, this is how the whole screen would look for an HR person. You're going to get summaries of your title. It aggregates your employee preferences, your education, and your work experience. So I think just seeing this could be very helpful for you to understand what the heck is ATS? Well, this is what it is, and this is how it looks. So we can go to the next slide that'll show just these scores. Now, all of these people here did very good. They're ranking them. So throughout the whole process, this guy, Jason, he was 92%. He had exactly what that company was looking for. So good for him. Now, Shannon had 85% and Manju had 83. It's up to the company to decide that threshold. So maybe anybody below 83 won't get the job. We were not even going to look at you if you don't have that match. Different companies can set the tile where they want, but you just see how much information that the ATS can give a hiring manager. I know where you applied, direct on the careers website, or you went to Indeed. And that's just an interesting tool that HR teams can leverage. So Patty, can you show us a little bit more? What do we have next?
Now we have the job scan. Okay, so this is where the fun begins. So job scan was something that actually Brian mentioned to me, and I actually reached out to the people at Job Scan because I found this to be probably one of the most amazing things I've ever realized. So what Job Scan is Job Scan takes your resume, your current resume versus the job that you're applying for before you apply for it, and tells you where you score in terms of percentage currently and where you can improve so that you can have your score higher so that it's optimized for the ATS. And I'm going to show you, but I just want to set up the process. So I took my resume and I was applying for a job it was for a hotel job that was a team effort, and it was working with suppliers, and it was working in relationships. So I took my resume and I took the job description and I then scanned it, and this is what it came up with. So the first time that I did this, and this is after I took my resume and put it in, my match rate was 22% of what this person was looking for with the job. So it shows you what ATS found, what the recruiter would found, my skills, and this is the side where it says 2714, that's the side that you want to look at, because that's the side that doesn't match up to the job description. So for example, let's go to the skills. I only had 3 skills that matched, 34 skills match that they found were important. Okay,
But
I
Patty,
did do a
that's
cover.
ridiculous. Sorry, I want to interrupt you, Patty, because that's ridiculous, because I know you could do the job. I know
Correct.
you're awesome, and this is no problem for you to do it.
Right, but this specific company was going through a ATS. They were going through ICIMS or Greenhouse, one of the two that was strictly an ATS system. And if I had submitted my resume, I probably it would have just kicked me back immediately. So, and this is the part that actually I find to be really interesting. So I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not really sure what this means where it says add the company name and they add the web address for this job, because I tried that and it still didn't work. And then it talks about the skills and keywords, which you will definitely see. And this is the job title match. This is really important. You need to make sure that what you are applying for is a match to what you currently are doing or what you have done. Because if you are a front desk clerk in a job, in a hotel, and you are all of a sudden want to apply for the director of sales and marketing, that's not a job title match. So you just have to make sure that you are really comparing somewhat apples to apples and not apples to oranges, because again, that will actually be, you will actually be kicked out. My education matched based on the job, my section, my work experience, and then the dates. So when I originally started, way back when with JobScan, my date formatting was incorrect, but they will give you all of that information. The word count is really important. So it gives you how much of a word count you have. And then it tells you your measurable results. So what I'm going to do is go through this now. So the hard skills, this is what they are based on the job description. This is what the company is looking for their hard skills that is high importance. So here you will see in the job description, it gave it said it 8 times that they wanted somebody with strategy, and I had 0. I had no strategic direction, no continuous improvement. So you'll see I didn't have a lot of these skills. So, you know, was this really the right job for me? Well, based on, I know that I can do the job, yes, but my resume was not tailored to what they were looking for. Then there's soft skills, where you'll see I had leadership 5 times in my resume and they required it. And then a lot of these other things, you know, collaboration. And when they say collaboration, if I say collaborate, that does not match up. So they're looking for collaboration. They're looking for influence. They're looking for emotional intelligence, leadership. Even if you put leadership, because see, I have leadership up here, but I don't have leadership experience. Okay, so these things are very nitpicky in terms of what they're looking for, but they want to make sure that your resume matches up to their job description. Now, the job description in the end may have nothing to do with integrity or innovation, but this is some of the things that they found were of medium importance in the job. And then you have your low importance. Now, because of the job, okay, I didn't work with, I worked with suppliers, but I wasn't working in the supply field. Or, you know, I did work in the hotel industry, but that was earlier on in my career, so it wasn't technically on my resume. Okay, as you can see, Priceline, I never worked for Priceline, stakeholders, commercial, teams, I did a lot of teams, and performance. So this will tell you a lot of interesting information in part 1, okay? It also tells you, is based on your resume, which I think is very interesting, jobs that you would be matching skills for your resume. So maybe you didn't think about a strategy and operations manager before, but if you apply for this, your resume is certainly, your percentage may come out to 85%, because the system is allowing you to see what you are capable of. So this is really a good tool to use. Now, after I looked at all of these skills, I went back to my resume and I redid my resume without changing my jobs. And I redid it, I rescanned it, and voila, I went from 22% to 64%. Now, truth be told, I don't know if 64% would have been even looked at. So maybe in their eyes, I'm not going to be a match for this. Even though I know that I can do this job, it matches my skills, there's only so much adding that you can do. So when you looked at the skills before, remember, I only had 3 out of 34. So I redid my resume, I added the correct words, and now I have 22 out of 34. So I've increased that. So again, you look at some of the words, okay? So I changed that, okay? And I added it, and then, so I still don't have influence. I added all of these, so you'll see, and those were the ones that were of high importance. So I really focused on those. And then for the medium importance, I changed there. Now this is where I ran into problems because there's only so much that you can make up in your resume. So this allows you to really tailor your resume to what the company is looking for. Now, you really have to be invested because you have to take the time to do this. You know, it's not something that can be fast done, but you also have to see if this is actually a job for you. I don't believe that I probably would have gotten called at 64%. I think that companies, based on what we know, either look for 75% and higher. So I don't believe that I would have been called based on some of my low importance skills, but then again, I could be wrong. So it doesn't hurt to still apply even with that low score, because if you have these high scores, that could automatically get you to the next level. And then again, based on your resume, it gives you job recommendations that would actually be good for you. So you can go on to there and you can actually look at some of these companies and see if they're of interest to you. And that's the thing that I like about this, because as we know, being in this industry, you know, we want to be able to have our skills, you know, I'm a salesperson. You know, if you give me a great eraser, you know what, I can sell you that eraser. You know, that's what I do. I'm a salesperson. Do I think that, you know, I can go fly a plane? No, I'm not a pilot. You know, I'm just not a pilot. That's not one of my skill sets. Do I think that I can be a CFO? No, because finance isn't in my skill set. So, you know, but there are other things out there that may work towards your resume. So this is a great tool to use. I say to everyone, it's jobscan.com. Go play around with it. They give you freebies. I know that, let's see, how many scans do I have left? So they give you free scans. You know, they'll even do cover letters based on the job description. So, you know, if you're really looking for something that's going to help you, you know, beat the ATS, I absolutely recommend ATS.
Hey, Patty, I just want to jump in. We did have a question from Lois about the fees. And do you remember exactly, like, you get 5 free that you could just try out? That's how I got involved.
Yes.
That's how I got, you know, privy to it. And so did you. But then what happens?
So what they do is every month they send you free scans. So, you know, I mean, if you are really out there, I mean, this is a good investment if you're looking for a job and you've been out of a job, because I used 2 of my free scans for one job. So sometimes, you know, depending upon how badly you want the job, it could be different fees. So you have to either say, I'm going to invest in it, or, you know, or just wait for my freebies. But you do get free ones every month. So, you know, that is a really good way to do it. But again, when you're looking at these jobs, you need to look at these jobs. And the only reason why I picked this job, quite honestly, is because it was in the industry and Brian and I wanted to find something that was in the industry as opposed to, you know, maybe I'm not that qualified for it. But so the fees, it'll tell you what the fees are. But again, you sign up and you can get freebies and then it sends you freebies. I haven't paid yet. And, you know, we've been working on this for quite some time, so I haven't paid yet. So good question, Lois. And now we're going to share some tips with you on how to beat the system. So, of course, we just talked about JobScan. Now, again, I'm not an expert at JobScan, so I'm not going to say this will definitely do it, but this will definitely help you manage what you need to manage. And I can certainly talk with somebody from JobScan, and maybe we can even do another webinar on JobScan alone, because again, I'm not the expert on this. Traditional page limits. And what I mean by traditional page limits, I think sometimes, and I know this has happened, when you are submitting your resume and it says page 1 of page 2, and you still have your information on that page 2, sometimes it doesn't format correctly. So you need to be very careful with what you put on that second page. In the olden days, when everything was we hand you our resume, of course we wanted to put Patty Ferris page 2 of 2, because if they lost it, they would know that that belonged to me. But I'm not sure when anybody actually gave somebody their resume in person, because everything is done electronically. Using relevant keywords through the resume, again, based on your job description. I know that one of the things that JobScan always says is take out proactive, okay? Everybody's proactive. You wouldn't be looking for a job if you weren't proactive. So, you know, use the relevant keywords that match the job description. Because again, the job description is based on what they put into the system and what they are looking for. Using standard sections. I just learned today that there is one ATS systems that knocks out columns and tables. So if you are using columns or tables, it will not format and it will automatically knock you out. So be very careful on how you do your resume. Remember that less is better. Don't make it fancy. I've taken out my cell phone. I've taken out my phone. You know, people aren't looking to see how pretty your resume is. They want to, and they're not going to. They're going to see, right, Brian?
Yeah, and this one I want to even take further. The fanciness of it all. You can apply, you can like download and get these resume systems, pay $15, $20 a month for this colorful thing, and it looks like a piece of art, and you're going to use it, and it's not going to get you through these online application systems. It'll look nice if you hand it to somebody you know and send them an email, and they'll think it's interesting. But in the ATS, the computer doesn't recognize fancy, right? And to that point even further, there's a lot of ATS friendly templates online that you can use, and they're boring, but they are effective. And that's something for you to consider. They're all over. You can get them in Word, you can get them online. Very simple to use.
Right, and just look up ATS Applicant Systems. You know, one of the big things that we do in this industry is abbreviate and acronyms. Make sure that if you are using GBTA, you spell out Global Business Travel Associations. If you say that you have a CCTE, you have to remember that some people who are looking at this, especially a system, is not going to know what CCTE is. So no abbreviations or acronyms, spell them out. Now, you could say, for example, TAMS, and then say Travel and Management Society. But make sure you just don't say TAMS, because the system's not going to know what a TAM is. Something we mentioned before was Word, you know, or a document. You know, the PDF doesn't form, you know, in these systems.
Very important.
Very important. And then definitely if you see a job, because again, LinkedIn uses these as well, you are better off to apply directly through the company. So with that, we are going to head to questions. Do we have any, Brian, were there any in the chat?
Yeah, I went through one. We got through Lois's while you were on it. That's the pricing. But we did get another question about, you know, how do you use ATS to transfer industries if you're transitioning somewhere else? I could speak to it, you know, personally, if you're going from hospitality and you want to go into technology, right? We can do there's certain things that we can do on this online system in using the ATS. And then we'll have to do some follow-up directly, right? Because you're going to want to put your application in online. You know, you may not have a perfect match, but you can also find someone at the company, find the hiring manager, and you go outside and actually follow up and say, hey, this is something that I'm very interested in. I think I have the skills, and you network a little bit. But that's different. That's, you know, those are extra pieces online on your application. Here's a big tip that you can use. Your jobs might not match up, from hotel sales to technology. Like if you ever look at a technology company, everything is like a different language, right? The job description, you're a small business coordinator, you're a specialist at this special sales of cold calling, but they name it something different. And you're a customer success manager, you're not a guest service manager anymore. So what you can do, simple, put parentheses next to your job description and put equivalent to customer success manager, equivalent to small business development representative. You know, so these pieces will help you match up the differences because you've done those experiences for most of it. If they ask you in the beginning, how much experience do you have in healthcare? Well, that's something that is going to be a little bit of a gray area. You can't lie, but you can put down your answer. And if that's the case where you have all zeros for those front questions that you think might be disqualifying, follow up. You know, you can find someone at that company to follow up with, and that's our advice there. But if it says, do you have a doctorate in, you know, or a degree in biology, and you don't, that's something you need to reconsider. Maybe you have to go back to school or to get those certifications and skills. So,
or that may not be the job for you. So you have to look at what you actually have and how well you actually match up to the job description. And again, your wording versus their wording. So, you know, again, you need to look at this and say, again, I'm not going to apply for a CFO because I have, you know, just because I've been in the industry, you know, the CFO of Marriott, because I've been in the industry for 33 years and I've interfaced with all of these different departments, I don't have the CFO background. But, you know, there could be another job within accounting that I may be able to do. So, you know, again, you have to know what you can do and what you can't do. in terms of any industry and getting out of the industry and pivoting to another industry.
Patty, here's one from Mary about finding industry-specific keywords. Is there a good source for this other than the job posting?
Well, what I would do is, I mean, me personally, is I would utilize, definitely LinkedIn as that. So for example, if you have somebody who is looking for a director of sales and marketing at Marriott, and you want to look at some keywords, go into LinkedIn and see who are currently director of sales and marketing and look at their bios, look at what they're currently doing.
Yeah.
What is, in some cases, what they've done before in previous jobs. I mean, directors usually are at several different properties. Even if you're a sales manager and you want to move up to a director, look at that person's job description, in that field, and look at that and say, oh, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that, and then tailor your resume to, make it fit for a director of sales and marketing position, because you actually have the qualifications. You just didn't realize that that's what they do. And then you can take that information and then, put it into the ATS. I mean, you've had experience, you've been working in a field for 10 years, you've had 10 years experience. Well, how long have you been, directing people? Well, I haven't, but, so sometimes it's really important to look at what other people have done and where they've come from.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you see that they were a sales manager and then they're a director of sales and marketing. Well, how did they get that?
Yeah. I've got a couple last pieces of advice as well. Patty, you can share some there before we hit the top of the hour. I think it's about quality over quantity in job applications. So if everybody out there is looking for jobs, focus on the quality. Don't be fooled by this LinkedIn easy apply button. That's going to work the same way. LinkedIn's just going to take your resume and send it through the company's ATS system, or it's going to take your profile. So you have to do this work, this pre-work. And if you take your time and focus on 5 resumes instead of 100, this can be very helpful. I hate to see those comments from everybody's, on LinkedIn. After 200, 300 applications, I finally got this job and somebody replied to me. Well, don't count those easy applies as a full application. Put in the time, do the work, and you're going to land that job that you deserve.
And that's a really important factor, is the easy apply in LinkedIn. Okay, because remember, it's just taking your resume. Sometimes it doesn't ask for a cover letter, and you're only allowed 1 document. And if you use, if you do your resume and then a cover letter at the end, or vice versa, the system won't recognize it. It doesn't recognize that because it's only recognizing 1 document, and regardless of whatever it is. So be very, very careful on that. And I think that are we at the top of the hour? Do we have any other questions, Brian?
Yeah, we've got a few more. Amy Benson just chimed in about the importance of cover letters. From my understanding, some companies will score this in a factor. They'll score it as part of your whole message, but it's hit or miss, right? If the company asks for a cover letter, probably just do it. I don't want to be the one to advise you not to do the cover letter if that's an option. And again, there's the possibility that those keywords are going to get picked up. So you have to treat the cover letter the same way.
The same way that you would the resume.
Yeah, it's okay to admit, I want to say it's okay to admit, but that wouldn't be my advice. If you could put in that time, put in that cover letter. If you were a hiring manager, that's what you'd want. If you own the company, I want to see that letter.
Yeah. So. And I think actually, oops, I'm sorry. This actually goes to the next question that Alexis said. She recently received her CMP, and I want to use my transferable skills for events in tech or high-end companies. How can I promote that in a cover letter or resume so that I can at least meet with a recruiter? That's really important. So what you need to do is, and again, we're no experts, but based on what we've learned about these ATS systems, is look at other people who are currently in that field. And if you're going to send a cover letter, make sure that you have those buzzwords in that cover letter that will actually that people will be able to pick out, okay? Somebody who has CMP, a recruiter in the tech or high end are not going to know what CMP is. So you need to spend the time educating them on what CMP is. We know that because we're in the industry, but a recruiter who does not utilize this industry, okay, or doesn't know what CMP is, spend the time explaining what CMP is and how you can take what you've learned being a CMP and moving that into the tech or high-end companies. Because tech and high-end companies are going to utilize that in this day and age for their inside meetings. But now you're a meeting person. So now you understand how that goes, where a high-end company or a tech person doesn't understand what meetings are like online.
And that 10 years experience, those years of experience that the companies are asking for, just remember that we were talking about the scoring. This is going to go into that. So if it's 10 years, 5 years, however many, and if you just you have 1 year experience of that, you're still going to get a score. And there will be some other questions that add up. So it could have a chance to, it's not an end all be all, but those scores will affect you. Hopefully you'll still get seen with a few years of experience.
Great answer.
So
I think we are actually at the top of the hour. We want to be cognizant of our, your time and ours. I just want to say thank you so much for attending this. I have really enjoyed, doing it. I've enjoyed, being with Brian and I doing ideas. It's really made me look at applying for jobs or helping people apply for jobs at a very, very different outlook.
Yeah.
And that's what TAMS is here for. We're here to help you. Again, if you're not a member of TAMS, please join a committee, be a part of the change. And if you like what you see, consider donating anything from $5 to $10. We're a nonprofit, so it is tax deduction. Brian, you want to add anything before we say bye-bye?
No, I think you said it very well, that just going through these processes made us look at the applications in a different way in our job search. So I hope that encourages you to do the same and share it with your friends as well. Start talking about it with others. See if anybody knows about the ATS, or if you know anyone in HR, and talk about it. Get yourself re-energized, depending at what point you're at, and get back out there and keep searching. And hopefully these tools are going to get you past that mark and meet your goals, because you're awesome. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day or evening, wherever you may be.